Good evening again, man. We want to welcome you guys back to the Conversation 980. We got another episode, and I'm truly happy and excited of being back on today. I just want to say thank you, everybody, man, for rocking with your boy. Been going strong now for yeah, it's going on 3 years now. Been going strong for 3 years now. Started, I just thought about it. It was in September of 2020 when I got started, and I just want to truly grateful and thankful for continue just to be able to continue to keep going. But not only that, though, just really just being obedient to what I felt God led me to do, and been doing it ever since. So thank you guys so much. It means a lot, and I definitely appreciate you, your support, and the feedback and just the different conversations. It means a lot. Again, man, I can't stress that enough. Before I just thought about it right when we came on. 3 years strong this month, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. But I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everything is going well with everybody. And tonight's conversation is going to be a good one. I think tonight's conversation is going to be a challenging one, and one that I feel that is necessary to have, especially with everything that's been going on. And but with all that said and done, man, I just wanted to get that out the way. Um, we're getting ready, transitioning, getting ready for fall time to come in. Football season is going on, so one of my favorite times of the year. I get to watch football and live through that. But uh, again, man, love on your people. I do want to say that, love on your people, because people means a lot, especially those that's close to you. But again, let me know where you're tuning in from. This is an interactive show. Show that love to have the feedback, the comments, and I just look forward to having that. But we're just gonna go ahead on and get started. My mom starting out saying, "Good evening, War Eagle." Okay, Mama, roll tide, roll tide. I still love you, still love you. But we're gonna go ahead and get started. And what we talk about tonight um, is a good topic, and the topic that we're talking about is never underestimate the power and freedom of taking accountability for your actions. And there's a power and a freedom that is found when you take accountability for your actions. And I mean full accountability. I'm not just acknowledgement, right? But taking accountability for your action. Because what happens with that is that's where a lot of times we uh, stay stuck or stay stagnant in places because we refuse to take ownership and accountability for our actions. And what happens in that space, we just stay on a like a groundhog day over and over until we get to a space to where we say that I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to take full accountability for my actions or for my choices or for my decisions. And I'm not going to try to waste my time, energy, and effort trying to blame everybody else, but I'm going to take responsibility for it. And in that, once we do that, that means that now a lot of times that transition or there's a dynamic shift because we release ourselves from the bondage of our choices. When we do that, when we release ourselves from the bondage of our choices, when we take accountability, right? And that is a fact. But the reality is, many of us, we love to acknowledge, right? And there's a difference between accepting accountability and acknowledging what you did, or acknowledging your actions. And many of us are at a place to where we are willingly would acknowledge what we did wrong, but we will fight tooth and nails to accept full responsibility of the things or our action, or full responsibility for our actions. And the sad truth in that is when we do that, we'll acknowledge it, but the pride in us, right? And many of us have the audacity to acknowledge that we do wrong, but won't even take accountability because we don't feel like in ourselves that we should change, even though we know it's wrong. And then the other side to that is not only that we don't feel like we should change, but we feel like we shouldn't be held accountable for it. And then we try to push that off on other people. And we be miserable by doing that. Many of us do that. Many of us do that. We are quick to acknowledge. We acknowledge, hey, I know what I did wrong, but I ain't gonna take accountability for it. And that's a sad truth. But many of us have to deal with people that's like that. If you think about it, if you really think about it, um, It is so frustrating dealing with people who just refuse to take accountability or ownership of their choices. And there's so many people who live their lives wanting to use certain things as an excuse, and they wear out their wear out they wear out the date of the excuse for what they tried to use from maybe a trauma, maybe from what somebody else may have done to them, and they spend years in that space wanting to blame somebody else. But reality is you're blaming other people because you don't want to be accountable for your decisions and your choices. Because the reality is, what happened to you may have happened to you, but that was a long time ago. What you're dealing with right now is not what they did to you. What you're dealing with right now is a result of your continued choices, bad decisions. And until you take full responsibility for it, not just acknowledge, but accept full accountability for it, that's when you'll see change. That's when you'll see your breakthrough. I promise you, that's when you'll see change, and that's when you'll see your breakthrough. Because many of us, it's not comfortable. It's not fun, man. Look, it's not fun being accountable. It's not fun or easy to admit that you're wrong. It's not fun to openly acknowledge that, hey, what I may have did may have been my fault. It's not fun, and it's not a natural thing. I mean, that's something that takes discipline, and it takes repeated, repetitions to get comfortable with doing that. But once you get over that initial discomfort and you see the benefits of it, you see the freedom of it, what happens is you'll begin to look forward to it, and you'll begin to pursue that. You'll pursue that because in that pursuit, you'll understand that that's where you tap into your power, and that's where you, in a lot of times, release yourself from the bondage of your decisions, because you take a responsibility for it. Full responsibility for it. You're not blaming nobody else. You're not making no excuses. You're not saying, see, what happened was. You're just taking full responsibility, and you free yourself in that. You free yourself in that just by making those decisions and making that choice. Right. But I tell you, one of the reasons, one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like being accountable or being held accountable, because accountability feel like an attack when you're not willing to deal with the consequences of your choices. And we cannot manipulate the consequences of our choices. And many of us feel as if I can deflect the accountability of it or taking ownership of my choices, the consequences of my choices, then I can manipulate or deflect it. And you can't. A lot of the times, because we do that, we mess up people's lives around us, and we cause people to deal with hardships around us that had nothing to do with our choices. But if we just fully just say, you know what, I'm not even trying to manipulate it, I'm going to take ownership. Yeah, that may be punishment. Yeah, there are going to be consequences. But there's a freedom and a power in that, because when you start taking ownership of it, guess what? Now it will influence your decision making going forward, because you don't want to experience those experiences that you did in the past. But the reality is, we got to get to that space to where we want to do that. But many of us, we don't. The reality is, many of us, we do not. We don't want that. We don't like that. And we just want the freedom to do whatever we want to do. And, that's it. I mean, that's just what it is. But uh, no matter how you feel, no matter what may have been done to you, no matter what, there's nothing that justifies doing wrong by others. I mean, doing wrong by others. Uh, a lot of things we don't like being held accountable because of things that we do wrong by others, because we attempt to justify our actions based off of their actions. Well, I only did that because you did this, right? The reality is, you did what you wanted to do, and you did what you made a decision to do. So don't try to use somebody else as a reason why. Take accountability for your choice, right? Take accountability for your decisions, take accountability for your actions, and stop trying to portray or project that on somebody else. Be responsible enough, right, to say, hey, this is on me, right? I take responsibility for my actions, despite what you may have done. I chose to do it. And the thing about it is, when we do that, what a lot of people don't realize is, when we do that, and it's just like I'm telling you, one of the pet peeves of mine, and this is true. You know, one of my pet peeves, especially as a parent and even as a leader, is somebody else who, when you get somebody that may have done wrong, right, or made a mistake or did something, but they don't want to accept responsibility, and when they're held accountable for it or held responsible for it, they want to blame other people or not take responsibility for their actions. That is a pet peeve of mine, because that shows that person, to me, that shows a lack of integrity in a lot of ways, because they don't want to be accountable, but they want the freedom to choose to do whatever and make the choice. They had the freedom to make the choice, but they don't want the responsibility and accountability of the consequence. And when we had to get to a space to say, you know, I did it. That happened to me. I did it. I did it. I was fully responsible for it, right? And I'm willing to accept it. And there's so many lessons that I've learned because I was willing to accept responsibility for some of the choices that I made that wasn't good. I learned a lot from it, and I freed myself from continual consequences. I did. My mom said, this journey called life has ups and downs. You would not like everything that happens to you, but it should not allow you to stop living because it happened. Nor blame someone else for where you are. And I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up. Because I think it's necessary to even have this conversation. I think it's necessary to even make this point, because a lot of people deal with it. But stop blaming other people for where you at. Stop blaming other people for the situations and circumstances that you are in right now. Stop blaming it. I mean, if you stop blaming your parents for what they didn't do for you when you've been out of their house for years. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't seek that I'm not dismissing that if some wrongdoing was done to you. I got it. But the world don't care about what you had to go through to get to where you at. So stop trying to blame somebody else for that, right? Accept ownership of where you're at right now. Be accountable for your choices, right? Because you can't hold anybody else accountable, because that's hypocritical to expect to hold somebody else accountable for their actions, but you expecting to get a pass for your own actions. That's hypocritical. And until you're willing to deal with yourself and your choices, right, that you won't even receive healing from what somebody else did to you. So you got to start at home. You got to start with yourself. You have to start with yourself. You got to start with that person in the mirror. You got to start there. You can't start with other people. You can try to put that on other people, but it has to start with you. It has to start with you. And I'll tell you, I will tell you this, man. It is dangerous to be a person who refuse to be held accountable for their actions and go through this world as if you're the victim, when the reality is the things and the reality of your life is a result of your choices. Now, I'm not dismissing and saying that you can't be impacted by outside entities or other variables that impact where you at. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, for those people, and we know many people like that, they always play the victim. It doesn't matter what decision they make, they play the victim. They are the victim. Not, hey, guess what? I did this. This is my choice. Yeah. And then when you bring things up to them and you show them things and you lay it out logically, they still refuse to acknowledge it, and they will blame something on somebody else, right? And somebody else is always a reason why they do something, because they are too immature to take responsibility for their own actions. And that's a maturity thing. That right there is a maturity thing. That's a straight up maturity. And sadly, we got many people that are of age that are living life like that. And I'm talking about the well into it. And stop wasting your life wanting to hold other people accountable for their actions, right? But then you refusing to accept responsibility for your own. Like, that is so hypocritical and counterproductive. We sit there and we will just, I'm talking about, hold grudges for years because of what we feel somebody is not held accountable for what they did to us or may have done to us. But we won't even accept responsibility for us coming in late. We won't accept responsibility for the smallest thing in our lives. We blame somebody else. Well, woe is me, and this is why. No, the reason why is you made the decision. You made the choice. So stop blaming other people and expect other people to pick up your weight. Pick up the weight of your choices, the consequences of your choices, why you can feel like you can lay it down on the excuses of what was done to you because you want to hold somebody else accountable. No, that's hypocritical. Deal with yourself first. Deal with yourself first. Don't sit around here and try to put that on other people, because the reality is, right? This is the reality. The reality is, at the end of the day, you're going to be the one that have to deal with the consequences of your choices. You are. You are. You know, so don't waste your life with that. Like, start dealing with it. And once you start, and I promise, this is why I say there's freedom and power. There's freedom and power. You know, once you start dealing with yourself and really like taking accountability for your actions, what you will learn in that is you will begin to have empathy towards those who may have done you wrong, because you see that a lot of the things that you have done or the choices that you have made have done wrong by other people. And you will realize that a lot of it may not even been intentional. Sometimes people hurt you or do wrong to you out of a place of hurt or out of a place of them not even knowing. They don't even know that they're hurting you. They just trying to do what they may feel was best for them. And once you go through the process and you take accountability, you'll start to see that, guess what? You be in the same boat. But once you see that, you'll realize, and you start dealing with yourself and start taking ownership of your own choices, you'll be more empathetic to other people. And that leads you, right, to start forgiving people and releasing yourself all of them grudges, because you will start to understand that, guess what? It wasn't intentional, and they were just human, because you human. And you will start, that's where a lot of freedom will come in. That's where a lot of times you will start to get your own breakthrough, because you'll get to a space where you can release people from that. You can release people from it. And that's why, you know, that's why it's hard. That's why it's so hard for some people, right? That's right there. It's so hard for some people. It's so hard for some people to forgive and release others from the wrongdoing that they may have done to them, because they are so busy trying to hold them accountable for what they did to them, but they refuse to deal with the account of being held accountable for their own choices and decisions. And for example, you have somebody who are mad at their parents for what they may have done or not done to them, right? They'll be mad at their parents, but then they'll turn around and be doing very similar things to their own kids. But they feel like they justified to do it because of what their parents didn't do for them. But then turn around and don't want to be held accountable for their bad decisions. But that's hypocritical. You got to deal with yourself. You got to deal with yourself first. And once you start dealing with yourself, what you will start to realize is you'll start to realize that, wait a minute, I'm hypocritical. How can I hold them accountable when I'm unwilling to be held accountable in my own right? So you got to learn to deal with you. You got to learn to address you. And once you learn to deal with you and address you, what you'll realize is you'll realize that, hey, you start to unlock a power and a freedom. And that power and the freedom, you know, the power and freedom that is gained from accepting accountability, accepting responsibility and accountability and ownership of your choices comes because it releases yourself. It becomes the key to unlock the imprisonment that we keep ourselves in when we refuse to take ownership of it. Because the reality is we cannot get away from our consequences. No matter how much we try to do, no matter how much we try to manipulate, we all have to give an account for what we do. We all have to give an account for what we do. And because we have to give an account, no matter how much we try to manipulate, we make everybody else's life around us. We impact the lives of everybody around us. But at the end of the day, we still will be accountable for our actions. So the best thing for us to do is to free ourselves from that bondage, take ownership of it. And then once we take ownership, we take that key and unlock ourselves from the imprisonment. And because we took responsibility for our choices. We took responsibility for our choices. So man, I just want to thank you guys so much. I mean, I just wanted to get on here tonight. Tell you this is third there. This month is the third year. So shout out to for those that's been rocking with me. Just want to continue to be obedient and put this out here. And I'm grateful and thankful. And I appreciate you guys more than you know. You guys have a great and wonderful day and weekend. God bless.